Hello, friends. I'm Anderson Marchak,
And I'm Ricardo Segura.
and we are the Panel Bros. Welcome to the panel.
Welcome to the panel. Yeah,
All right, folks, here we are.
here we are, baby.
As of this recording, it is late March of 2024. And when you last saw us or listened to us, we did our top 10 movies of 2023, including our um, honorable mentions.
Yeah.
And we put that out the weekend of the Oscars. And Ricardo and I were talking, and we figured let's just give you our reaction to the Oscars
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
we saw a lot of these movies, and we're gonna have a bigger focus on the acting, directing, and Best Picture
hmm
awards because that's the things we're passionate about. But I figured we could just chat a little bit about the Oscars.
Yeah. Let's do it. Look, there was clearly some movies we were rooting for, some big winners. So why not discuss it? Let's talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So here we are with the Panel Bros official 2024 Oscars reaction. So
Yes.
So first up here, let's talk a little bit about movies that we feel were snubbed, and
Yeah.
we agree with some of the ones,
hmm
and others we may not have seen. So let's just touch on that briefly here. Um, One movie in particular that we both have talked about on the air is a movie that wasn't nominated at all, and that would be Air, directed by
Air.
Ben Affleck. Yeah,
I remember when we first saw it. I remember telling you like, oh, that should be that's an Oscar nominated film all around in many avenues.
right.
So I was really surprised that it just didn't get that kind of love. Very taken back by that.
Yeah, let's see here. Air got a couple Golden Globe nominations. I saw
Mhm.
that, but just nothing from the Academy. And
Nothing.
I thought for sure Matt Damon.
Mhm.
I mean Viola Davis, she's a powerhouse. I thought for sure maybe her again,
Yeah.
and then at least a best screenplay, maybe
Yeah.
best director for Affleck. Definitely a best picture. Definitely. There's like no, oh no,
Yeah,
it's
like
gonna get nominated.
that's what I saw. Like I remember I believe you saw it before I did because I remember you were telling me like there's a moment with Matt Damon
Yeah.
that
Mm,
when you watch it and I was like, okay, and I watched it and it's that amazing monologue that he has and he's just in it. And just like you, I was like, all right, that's going to get Oscar attention. Obviously, the entire film, he does a terrific job, but it was in that moment, the way that it shot, the score, his performance. I was like, oh, dude, this is an Oscar nominated performance for Matt Damon. And it didn't happen. And I was very surprised. And like you, I was like, okay, best original screenplay, power hitters like Ben Affleck, Viola Davis. And it just didn't happen. And I was kind of like, really? Like nothing? And it goes to show you, like, it's that's gonna happen sometimes. There's plenty of great films that just get snubbed, and you just kind of have to sit there and go, okay.
Yeah, exactly. And he has yet to win a Best Actor or Supporting Actor.
Mhm.
So we thought that maybe this would have been the one he got nominated and then possibly won, but hasn't happened yet. I have his Wikipedia up here. He was nominated for Best Actor in Good Will Hunting,
Okay.
Best Supporting Actor in Invictus, and then Best Actor in The Martian, which
The Martian.
there
Yep.
was no surprise that was happening there.
100%.
Um, So let's take a look here at another one. This is a movie that I had seen before we did our top 10 and Ricardo
Mhm.
had not, but he has since seen it.
Yes, I
So
have.
we're gonna touch on this and we're gonna do a breakdown for this one day because we need to.
Yes.
The Iron Claw was a big snub for us with the Oscars.
I wish I saw it before the Oscars, but it helped the sting a little bit because if I had seen this before the Oscars, I would have been very upset. Like I remember from you and many other peers who had seen it that they were like Zac Efron, arguably one of his best performance. There's no way he doesn't get an Oscar nom, and it didn't happen. Having seen the film, I was like, okay, this again. There are certain movies that when you watch, they just kind of have that feel. Certain movies can be considered Oscar bait, if you will, and then other movies just have that feel that when you're watching it, you go like, man, you could just feel something special. And Iron Claw was that movie, and I
Right.
really, really felt that we were getting a Best Picture nom. and especially a performance from Zac Efron. I thought that they were going
Oh
to
yeah.
really highlight and acknowledge that we're talking about the physical transformation as well, which is no, you know, no stranger to the Oscars. Physical transformations, incredible physical transformation. That Zac Efron was ridiculously
Oh my
ripped,
goodness. Yeah.
just the most ripped I've ever seen him, which takes a lot of work, regardless of this or that. And his performance was so raw, man. There's a lot of good performances in it, but his performance was so raw
Yeah.
that I was like, he's got to, and it just didn't happen, man. For whatever reason, nothing, like zero Oscar noms at, and I was again, you just kind of have those moments where you're taken back a little bit, and you're like, wow, okay,
Yeah, and for me, like, it's definitely, I would say, um, best actor for Zac Efron for sure,
Mhm.
and then maybe even Jeremy Allen White as a best supporting actor, 'cause
Dude,
his scenes were heartbreaking in that movie as
yeah,
well.
man, yeah.
And then, maybe we could have gotten a best director for Sean Durkin, and then, maybe a best picture, but out of everything, I would have said, like, Zac Efron,
Yeah,
best actor, and then maybe a screenplay nomination, because
yeah.
this, um, the dialogue in this movie is just like it's
Oh,
heart-wrenching, and I said it was like a gut punch. Just it was
yep.
like scene after scene after scene, and um, so let's just touch on that for a second here, as far as maybe why it didn't get any love, and a lot of people just point to the fact that it was a movie about a pro wrestling family,
Yeah,
and I don't know, because Aronofsky's The Wrestler
yeah,
got a lot of love that year from the awards.
it
Um,
did, and that came to mind quite a few times when considering why it didn't get any Oscar nominations, because The Wrestler was one of those movies that had amazing buzz. Mickey Rourke was no stranger to Hollywood, but, The Wrestler was kind of what really brought him back into the light. Like, everyone's talking about Mickey Rourke, The Wrestler,
right,
and it was a raw performance, and we had a somewhat of a fictional take on what really happens, where the Iron Claw was based on a real family and real tragedy, that anybody can just go and read the story, and it is extremely tragic and horrific, everything that happened within that family. And I'm having a hard time still placing why it didn't get those Oscar nominations. Like, I'm taken back. I don't know if it has anything with the do with the story being, that actually existed. I honestly, I can't figure it out, because the number one thing, again, which you mentioned, which for me was Zac Efron. Like, I was like, okay,
right,
that's the shoe in. Like, if there's anything within this movie that it's getting an Oscar nomination, it's that performance, and it didn't happen. And I was taken back. The dialogue, as you mentioned, there are gut punches in this movie, and it's easy to, try to emotionally touch someone, a viewer, but it's look, it's easier said than done, but this movie delivered on that aspect, from the performances and the writing. Like, there are moments, and I think everyone can relate to that one scene at the end with Zac Efron's and his sons. The dialogue and the performance, man, it just knocks the air out of you. It
right.
just absolutely knocks the air out of you. And having walked away, I was like, okay, he's getting it, but it for whatever reason didn't happen. And I wish I could be a fly on the wall in the conversation between everyone who was a part of the process. I'm like, well, why not that one? I honestly, I can't figure it out.
And The Wrestler, that was, well, that was, uh, uh, it was critical acclaim, but as far
Mhm,
as major awards are considered, um, so Marissa Tomei and Mickey Rourke, they both got Golden Globe nominations. Mickey
mhm.
Rourke won the Golden Globe,
Yeah,
and then they both got Oscar nominations. Those were the only 2 Oscars that movie was nominated for, and
mhm.
neither won. So, but at
Yeah.
least they were nominated.
They were nominated. Yeah,
So,
yeah,
and I talked about Jeremy Allen White. I think he could have gotten one, but Zac Efron for sure. Like, it was the
yeah.
best performance of his career. Like, there
It
was,
really was, man. Like, we've seen
yeah,
we've seen Zac Efron go from High School Musicals to the buddy comedies, to the rom-coms, to dramatic roles, but this one felt like, man, like, when I watched it, I was like, this is one of those roles that you sink your teeth into, that definitely has an effect on you as a person and as a performer. And I felt that while watching it. And because of that, I really, again, I was rooting for him. Like, I just
right.
kept hearing all the buzz about Zac Efron, Zac Efron. And again, had I seen this before the Oscars, it would have hurt me even more. I watched it after, and I was like, "Oh man, the Oscars are already over, so it doesn't hurt as much." But I wish he
Right.
would have got nominated for that performance.
So real quick, we touched on this when we did our top 10. You said you had a feeling it would have been in your top 10.
Yep,
So looking
absolutely.
back, is
Mhm.
that safe? It would have been in your top
Easily,
would have been in
easily. That would
top
at least top
5?
top 6 for sure.
Okay,
Top
cool,
6 for sure. I'd have to
cool.
go back and look, but it would definitely make top 6 or more because,
Yeah,
you know, I have a love for the subject matter
right.
and exploring that world on film. I think there's a lot to that world to be explored in film.
And right. Now, so we have these, Dark Side of the Ring,
Yeah.
and, I think A&E, they do the biographies,
Mhm.
and who knows, maybe this might open the door for more, um,
I hope
biopics,
so. I hope
wrestling
so.
biopics, because
I hope
these
so.
men and women have lived incredible lives
Yeah.
and tragic as well,
Yeah.
and, maybe, um, the Iron Claw will open up that door, as far
Yeah.
as the future goes.
I think there's very motivational stories, there's very tragic stories, and I think that there's stories that should be told. So hopefully it happens.
Yeah. So we're gonna touch real quick on a couple other movies, that they said I saw that we may have watched, that could have
Mhm.
gotten nominations. Blackberry,
Yeah, dude.
Glenn Howerton and Jay
Yeah.
Baruchel. They're saying that those 2 performances,
Yeah.
easily could have gotten nominated. I'm thinking maybe the score, maybe Best
Mhm.
Picture, just, that made your top 10, didn't it? Or was it a,
Yeah.
um, honorable
Oh, shoot.
mention?
Shoot.
I don't remember.
It might have been an honorable mention.
Honorable
It might
mention,
have been an
yeah,
honorable I think it
so
was an honorable mention.
and the next one here, you did not watch, but I did, and it's May,
Mhm.
December.
I gotta watch it. I'm gonna jump on
So,
this as soon as possible.
my 2-second thoughts on that movie is, it's a novella, and it knows what it
Mhm.
is, it just felt like a melodramatic soap opera novella, and
Mhm.
everyone just gives their all performance-wise. They're saying, like, a lot of the performers should have gotten nominated, Natalie Portman, Susan Sarandon, um, maybe the director, maybe Best Picture, so, I don't know, maybe it was like a, "Hey, guys, this was so bad it's good." I don't know.
I don't know. I'm gonna watch it though because I love when a movie knows what it is, especially when the cast knows what it is. And based off what you're telling me, like it's a novella, they know and they lean into it, and I love that type of thing. So I'm like, all right, I gotta check that one out.
Yeah, um, so it actually got nominated for 1 Oscar, though, and that would be for, Best Original Screenplay.
Hey man, that's something. Like, yo, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
and Natalie Portman, Charles Melton, and Julianne Moore all got nominated for Golden Globes. So,
Look,
I don't know what it was. Like, as I was watching the movie, I said, "What is happening here?"
yeah,
Like, this is just it's just like a soap opera, but
yeah.
for whatever reason, just critical acclaim and just,
Mhm.
um, these, awards, it just kept getting award nominations and wins. So,
It's always interesting when that happens, when you can see a movie with really good critical acclaim and they're doing relatively well in award season at other shows, but they just don't get it. It just doesn't happen at the Oscars. It's always interesting when that happens.
right. Um So this next one, I don't believe you've seen. It's,
Mhm.
Killers of the Flower Moon,
Not yet.
and the big one is that Leonardo DiCaprio, he did not get nominated for that.
Mhm.
So, I can speak on it since I saw the movie.
Yeah.
Um, I think he could have gotten a nomination, but once we touch on the Best Actor nominations, we'll
Mhm.
be able to speak on why he didn't, and we'll touch on that in a little bit here, but I can see why he didn't get nominated once I see all the other people that got nominated. Plus, um, let me do like a quick search here. How many how many times has he been nominated?
Oh, Leo, he's definitely been there. And like again, Leo was one of those guys I remember year after year we were rooting for him. Like, please let
Right.
this be the one. Please let this be the one. And he got it for The Revenant, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Because it was like, man, he had to
So
fight a bear for that.
he's won 1 of 7. So
Okay.
7 nominations and he won 1. So,
Okay.
and lastly here, 2 notable snubs, so to speak, were Margot Robbie for Best Actress in Barbie
Mhm.
and Greta Gerwig for Best Director for Barbie.
Yeah, I remember those,
So
yeah.
once again, we will touch on those once we hit the best actress and then the best director, and we'll see if maybe they could have made their way in there based
Mhm.
upon what we've seen. So let's just start at the bottom here and we'll work our way up.
Oh, yeah.
Um, so normally we wouldn't touch on this category, but it's a lot of sci-fi
Mhm.
and genre. So that it was best visual effects,
Yeah.
and we have Napoleon, Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part One, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, The Creator, and the winner would be Godzilla minus one. So,
Yes.
so
Listen.
Godzilla won an Oscar.
I am so happy that a Godzilla movie, a Godzilla film won an Oscar, and haven't seen it. We've both seen the film, and I believe we both seen it in the theaters. There were moments in this film where I was just flabbergasted at some of these visual effects,
Yeah.
where I was just like that I was like, "Oh man, is that a practical? Like, is that a puppet? Is that visual?" And it's like it's visual effects. And I was watching breakdowns. I was going on YouTube looking up visual breakdowns of this thing and just watching. So I was ecstatic. I was absolutely ecstatic to see that it won for best visuals because they were just fantastic.
Out of the other nominees, I could have seen The Creator winning it
Yes.
because,
Yes.
oh man, what a movie. But I could
Yes.
have seen The Creator winning it. But there was no denying just the amount of money Godzilla was made for and what they were able to
Mhm.
accomplish on screen. They made a movie for between 10 and 12 million. And
It's
it
insane.
looked so good. So, maybe the Academy looked at that and said, "Hey,
Yeah.
you don't need a big budget." So,
No, you just look, we talk about this all the time, man. Like you just need to be able to have enough time to put the work in and really, care about the craft. A lot of times when we see like bad visual effects in the movie, nobody wants to make bad visual effects. Nobody sets out to do that. You got time constraints, you got studios overworking talent. It's a lot. There's a lot going on. But this seemed that they had the time, they made work with the budget that they had, and it worked out for them in the end. And like you said, if I had a number two, the creator, like there was some stuff in the creator that just looked magnificent. That you were like, man. And that's another movie that could have had a bigger budget. It had a manageable budget, and they were able to pull off some amazing stuff. I don't want to say it's one of my favorite things, but it's always interesting to watch a movie with just a ridiculous budget versus a movie like Godzilla minus one with a much smaller budget and look at the difference and sometimes be like, wow, I never would have guessed that Godzilla minus one budget was so low in comparison to, let's say, an Ant-Man Quantumania. You know what I mean? And it's just like, wow, like they crushed it. So again, I was so happy. They all had their little Godzilla figurines on stage
yeah.
with them. It was so awesome.
Alrighty, so next up here, it's not a movie, excuse me, it's a movie we're going to be touching on a few times, and that's
Mhm.
that one. It would be Oppenheimer,
Oh yeah.
and it won for best cinematography.
Oh
So I didn't see all of them, but the other nominees were El Conde,
mhm.
Killers of the Flower Moon, Maestro, and Poor Things. So, um, I mean, let's just put it out there. It was a good looking movie,
It
and
was.
it ended up winning a lot of Oscars that night. Um, out of all of them, I could definitely see why Oppenheimer won.
Yeah.
The only other one I thought that might have won was probably Killers of the Flower Moon, and then maybe
Mhm.
Poor Things. But just they wanted to reward Oppenheimer big time that night, so there was no surprise to me that it won best cinematography.
Yeah, because I've told people who haven't seen Oppenheimer. First, I'm like, that's a crime. You should have seen that immediately. But I digress. I understand life, um, where it's a movie essentially built on conversation, and to make conversation between two characters, three characters, four characters, and to make the shots as electric as they were and as cinematic as they were, that deserves all the praise in the world. So, like you, I think it was very well deserved of Oppenheimer. Poor Things had very interesting cinematography. There were certain scenes that almost had that fishbowl lens type of feel.
Yes.
And they had a lot of out of the box type of cinematography that's very interesting, that it's engaging in a way that I don't want to say it's distracting, but just engaging. Like you notice immediately that okay, this is shot in a specific way to feel like this. So Poor Things had interesting cinematography, but again, Oppenheimer, it I can visualize the shots in my head when I close my eyes of Oppenheimer because the cinematography was that well put together. Like there's just certain shots that everyone thinks of when they think of that movie, and it helps the movie stand out.
All right, so next one here that we're gonna touch on. So, since we just did cinematography, let's touch on production design a little bit because they're
Okay.
very closely related.
Mhm,
Um, Poor Things ended up winning Best Production Design,
mhm,
and the other nominees were Barbie, Killers of the Flower Moon, Napoleon, and Oppenheimer. So,
mhm.
in your words, what would you say distinguishes production design from the cinematography?
Production design, well, the best thing about production design, obviously, is that your cinematography, in my opinion, complements your production design.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, like, your production design can be this fantastic scale, but your cinematography is what's going to help that production design really stand out. Like a good example of that, in my opinion, is like Poor Things. Poor Things production design. I can see why it won because there are certain production design within that movie that felt like a great collaboration between a built set and a visual effect coming together to show this beautiful imagery. Like there's some really beautiful imagery in Poor Things. From the way that the sky is shot and insinuated with the production design around it. So I understand why Poor Things did as well as it did. And when you think about Barbie, like when you think production design for Barbie, you obviously think like the Dojo Casa house and the colors and this and that and the ridiculous nature of Barbie land and whatnot. And the interesting thing is that like the production design in Barbie and the cinematography, how they work together, like it feels like like it absolutely feels like a production set. Like, yes, they definitely built a set and they walked on it. Where in Poor Things, there's this collaboration that kind of helped the production design stand out and mesh with visual effects in the real world. So again, I understand why the production design for Poor Things was so highly regarded. But you know, you can have all these people coming together and make these great sets, great production from background to foreground, and I thought Poor Things did a really good job with that. So that I understand, that I get.
Yeah, so in layman terms here, the cinematography is just the way the movie's shot,
Mhm.
but the production is everything you saw in the movie, like the
Yep.
setting, the the clothing, even though that
Mhm.
has a separate, category
Yeah.
in itself, but it's everything you see in the movie, when you watch it. So, um, let's do let's do best original song. So,
Yeah.
yeah, what was I made for? Billie
Yeah.
Eilish and Phineas,
Mhm.
her brother, they won for Barbie, and the other ones here were I didn't see all of them, but The Fire Inside from Flaming Hot, I'm
Mhm.
Just Ken from Barbie,
Hmm.
competing, It Never Went Away from American Symphony, and A Song from My People, from Killers of the Flower Moon.
Mhm.
So, um, I think that we didn't exactly know how many awards Barbie was gonna win, but
Yeah.
it was almost like if we could give Barbie one, maybe they were just gonna say, "You know what? The song was a really good song. It was really
Mhm.
emotional. Let's just give her give Barbie, the best song." I mean, there were some of us with fingers crossed for I'm Just Ken to win. Just
Listen, listen, when I saw Barbie in the theater, and I think I told you and a few others, I was like, I could see Ryan Gosling getting nominated for Best Supporting Actor. So I was, I saw Barbie before I saw Oppenheimer, and obviously when I saw Oppenheimer, I was like RDJ. But I was like, oh, there's certain categories I was rooting for. I'll be honest with you, when all the Oscar nominations came out, I didn't think Barbie had a good chance at a lot. I was like, "Oh, man, like, they're stacked up against some amazing things." Not to take anything away from Barbie, but I was just like, "Oh, man, I don't know how well Barbie's going to do in terms of win." But this one, Best Original Song, was the one that I was like, "Okay, no, that one's gonna go to Barbie." I was like, "That one," like you said, like, if they're gonna give anything to Barbie, it's gonna be that one. The song was great.
Yeah.
It really elevated the scenes within the movie, and I know that many people who saw the movie just felt something when that song played. You know what I mean? Like they felt it. A lot of women were like, that song spoke to me. especially in the concept of the film. So I was like, okay, like that, and deservingly so. I was like, that is going to be the one thing that Barbie definitely gets, in my opinion. And I love the song. I have it. It's on my phone. I play it from time to time.
All right. So next up here, let's take a look at best animated feature. So
Yes.
we are partial to one of the movies on the list here, and some of them
Uh huh.
we didn't see. So the nominations were Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse,
Mm-hmm.
Robot Dreams, Nimona, Elemental,
Elemental.
and then the winner was The Boy and the Heron.
Yep.
Um, so here's the thing: The Boy and the Heron won,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not opposed to that. It was a Studio Ghibli film, and
Yep.
um, I feel like whenever that studio does a film, it's like, well, of course it's going to be amazing compared to all this other stuff. You
Yeah,
know,
dude. You're talking about Studio Ghibli. Like it's
There's
gonna kill it.
there's anime, and then
Mm-hmm.
Studio Ghibli, like, it's just like, "Okay, so we're gonna take anime to the next level," and
Yeah.
it's like it's just an event. So, I get why it won. Um, I didn't see The Boy and the Heron, so I can't say, but for me,
Mm.
you and I, we were both rooting for
Yes.
Across the Spider-Verse,
I
of course, you
Across
know?
the Spider-Verse because the first film won, and I was like, "Man, let's do it again. Let's do it again." And it wasn't just for the sake of doing it again. The movie's fantastic. Like, the movie takes everything that I loved about the first movie and just gives us that much more. You know what I mean? Great character work, great story, great world building, great lead into another film. Like, I couldn't wait to talk to people about that film. So again, I was rooting for it. Boy and the Heron won, and I was like, oh, I was like, I did kind of I kind of did that thing of, oh, I was kind of hoping for Spider-Man, but that's okay. That's okay. You know what I mean? Like one of those, like, that's okay. But yeah, yeah. I mean, it's Studio Ghibli. What are you gonna do?
Exactly. Um, let's take a look at we'll do best original screenplay first.
Mm-hmm.
So the nominations were Past Lives,
Mm-hmm.
May December, Maestro, The Holdovers,
Yes.
and then the winner, Anatomy of a Fall. So
Mm-hmm.
let's take a look at the winner, Anatomy of a Fall. I did not see this. And um I need to, but it got nominated for 5 Oscars. Best Picture, Best Director, Best
Mm-hmm.
Actress, and then it ended up winning Best Original Screenplay. So one, 2, 3, 4 nominate excuse me, 5 nominations. I need to get
All
the
right.
other nomination here. So, um, a lot of times, and I can't say this because I saw it, but a lot of times what the Academy will do is that they really like a film, but because, the ones that are winning all the major awards, they can't give them all to that one film, so they're just like,
Mm-hmm.
"Okay, we really like this one film. It got a handful of nominations. Let's just give it this one here," you
Mm-hmm.
know? So, and of course, that's not the way it works, but that's the mentality of us watching it. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah, it reminds me of, like, when you're taking a test and you've marked C for 1, 2, and 3. When you get to 4, you're like, "I can't do C again. Let's change it up. Let's choose B." And it reminds me of that because, like you said, it's not confirmed or anything. It's just always been our mentality of like, okay, they don't want this one movie to sweep every single award. They did enjoy this other movie, so they're like, "All right, well, let's give it this one." Like, you always feel like there's a little, push and pull when it comes to these awards and whatnot.
yeah, so it's, Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actress, Best Original Screenplay, and Best Editing. So one for Best
Mm.
Original Screenplay. Um, of the ones I saw, I could have seen The Holdovers winning,
I
actually.
love the
Yeah,
holdovers.
I could have seen The
I
Holdovers
did.
winning. So
I saw that twice in one weekend, and I hit you up and like this just made my new Christmas rotation. I love the screenplay. I really enjoyed it, and I was like, oh man, I don't know why. I don't know what resonated with me so much, but that was such a personal favorite. So like as you mentioned, like if there was any movie I was rooting for on that list, it was the holdovers.
all right. Next up here is let's touch on best adapted screenplay. So, yeah.
This was an interesting one because there's a movie in here, and I'll wait to announce it that I thought was interesting.
Yeah. So, we have The Zone of Interest,
Mhm.
Poor Things, Barbie, Oppenheimer, and then the winner was American Fiction.
Mhm.
So I thought that this would just be one of the ones added to the list of wins that Oppenheimer would get,
Mhm.
and it did not get it.
Nope.
American Fiction did, which I saw. I don't believe you've seen it yet.
I haven't yet. I'm
Yeah,
going to see it immediately.
yeah. So that American Fiction got nominated for 5 Oscars: Best Original Score, Best Supporting Actor, Best Picture, and it won Best Adapted Screenplay. So
Okay.
this was one where I saw people talking about saying, "Oh, this is a hidden gem. This is the one
Mhm.
that maybe people are going to be talking about." But once again, just another one where I feel like, hey, let's give it one at least.
Yeah, yeah,
You know, which is the
yeah.
movie you were wanted to touch on there?
Barbie, because I don't
Mm.
know the rules of an
Oh,
adapted screenplay. So
oh, okay.
when they nominated Barbie, and I said, "Well, Barbie is a very recognizable IP." I said, "But are they adapting a story from anything in particular with Barbie?" Like, when you think about, like, when Logan got Best Adapted Screenplay, you're like, "Okay, that is obviously coming from a Wolverine comic and Old Man Logan, and they're working together to kinda make this new story and whatnot." When they were like, Barbie got nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay, I was like, "Oh, that's interesting," because I'm not aware of what constitutes an adapted screenplay. Like, does it count that Barbie is merely a massive IP? Is that enough? Or does there need to be a work of literature under the Barbie brand in order for it to be considered an adapted screenplay? So when that got nominated, I was like, oh, I need to do some research because
Well,
I wasn't even aware it could be nominated in that regard.
so I'm here at the Wikipedia page.
Mhm.
It says the Academy Award for Best Adapted Screenplay is the Academy Award for the best screenplay adapted from previously established material.
Okay. Okay.
So that would include IPs, even
Okay, and
though
that was my thing. I was like, does
yeah,
IP count, or does there have to be something that has been written in order for them to take that story, adapt it, and make, and I was like, oh, so again, I was like, oh, I didn't know that. Oh, okay, cool. All right.
right.
Learn something new.
Moving on here, we're gonna take a look at Best Supporting Actress,
Yeah.
and our nominations were Jodie Foster in Nyad,
Mhm.
America Ferrera in Barbie, Danielle Brooks in The Color Purple, Emily Blunt in Oppenheimer, and our winner, Divine Joy Randolph in The
Yeah.
Holdovers.
I was so
So,
happy for her.
yeah. Um, Up until when I saw The Holdovers, I thought
Mhm.
Emily Blunt was going to win
Oh, for sure. 100%.
because just the buzz that Oppenheimer was getting and how many wins is it going to get, and so on and so forth. Um, but Holdovers made like a just a push near the end of award season, and people were saying that Divine Joy was going to get it, and
Mhm.
it was awesome in the movie.
Yeah, she was great.
Just a real heartfelt character, and um, she balanced out Paul Giamatti's rigid character. So
Yes. Yes, she was great, and I agree with you 100%. I saw Oppenheimer before Holdovers, and there was probably around 3 scenes with Emily Blunt where I was like, "Oh, man, she's
yeah,
getting nominated." Like, they're like, she's strong that entire film, but there's, like, these moments in the film that I'm like, "Oh, she's getting nominated. She's absolutely getting nominated." And as the other announcements were coming out, I was like, "Oh, man, Emily has a really strong shot." And then I saw the Holdovers, and it was obviously a competition between all these women. All these women did fantastic. Um, but I was pleasantly surprised and very happy that our girl won from the Holdovers. I was very happy about that.
yeah. So let's see here. Next one here. Let's take a look at Best Supporting Actor,
Mhm.
and we have Mark Ruffalo for Poor Things,
Mm.
Ryan Gosling as Ken and Barbie. We have Robert De Niro in Killers of the Flower Moon,
Mhm.
Sterling K. Brown in American Fiction, and the winner, Robert Downey Jr. in Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
So I actually saw all of these performances,
Mhm.
and to me, we talked about this when we saw Oppenheimer. It was going to be who could be the one that we would say, okay, this person was more deserving than Robert Downey Jr.
The Robert Downey
And
Jr. Yep.
nobody. There was he was it was a performance of a lifetime,
It
and we knew that he was going to get nominated. And then, as more nominations and award season hit, it was just like nobody's going to beat him. It's his.
it was his to take. As I mentioned when I was watching Barbie, I was so blown away by how charismatic and funny Ryan Gosling was. I was like, nominate that man for an Oscar, just do it, and they did, and it was fantastic. And then watching Oppenheimer, it was another immediate reaction, and it's another testament to that film and everyone who worked on it. But it was an immediate reaction when that movie was over, where not only did we know RDJ was potentially or was going to get nominated for an Oscar, but it was like he's at a really strong position to win this thing. And watching the performance from the other actors, again, everyone did fantastic, but it was just RDJ's to take. Like we're talking about, like you said, a career performance. Like if anybody had any doubts whatsoever about RDJ, because let's be honest, when it comes to RDJ, he spent a long time playing Tony Stark in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, where the two kind of bled together. You say RDJ is Tony Stark, and sometimes it's hard to shake that image. You know what I mean? It's funny because RDJ was already a significant name in Hollywood, but it was as if sometimes when they cast an unknown actor to play a superhero, from that moment forward, they're always that hero. Like Hugh Jackman was always going to be Wolverine, like because that is many people's introduction to that character. Many people's introduction to Henry Cavill is Superman, and they will always see him as Superman. RDJ was already a significant name, but he bled so well with Tony Stark, it's hard to kind of shake that character off. And I'm sure many people were wondering, what his career was going to be like after the MCU. And this performance was a clear reminder and an indicator of like, no, this guy can still be a chameleon and he can make you forget. Because I didn't see Tony Stark anywhere. You know what I mean? Like I didn't see already. I saw this fantastic performance that just helped elevate the movie that much more. And when it was all said and done, when the Oscars were announced and the show was on, I was like, it's his to take, it's his to take, and very well deserving. Just very, very, very good performance overall, and I was very happy to see him up there, as I felt like it was the moment that even he personally needed. Like it showed him, like, yeah, no, there's still more he can do in his career.
I'll give you some credit here because when you told me that you thought that Ryan Gosling would get nominated
Mm-hmm.
during award season and an Oscar, I said, "An
Yeah,
Oscar?" You said, "No, he's
yeah,
gonna get nominated."
he's gonna get
And
nominated.
you you called it. He was nominated, during award season, and
Mm-hmm.
especially the Oscar there too. Obviously not enough to beat Robert Downey Jr., but at
No,
least to
no,
get
no.
nominated, which is
Yeah,
really awesome.
yeah.
So next up here, we're gonna take a look at Best Actress,
Mm-hmm.
and we have Carrie Mulligan in Maestro. We have Sandra Hüller in
Mm-hmm.
Anatomy of a Fall. We have Lily Gladstone in Killers of
Mm-hmm.
the Flower Moon, Annette Bening in Naiad, and Emma Stone in Poor Things. Now,
Yeah.
I haven't seen all of these. I saw Maestro, Killers of the Flower Moon, and Poor Things.
Mm-hmm.
Coming into the Oscars, a lot of people thought that Lily Gladstone was going to win because she had won a lot of awards, as did Emma Stone. They
Mm-hmm.
both each won a Golden Globe for their role. But people thought that maybe the Academy were going to recognize a indigenous woman, and
Mm-hmm.
um, just with just the buzz with critical acclaim and the awards that Killers of the Flower Moon were racking up. It's Scorsese. It's gonna at
Yep.
least get this, for her. But to everybody's shock, it was Emma Stone, to the point that Emma Stone was shocked
Yeah,
when
dude.
she
Like you
went
could
up
see
there.
it.
She burst into tears, and it was her second Academy Award win, first one being for La La Land. Um, so we're going to touch on this a little bit here, but you did not see Killers of the Flower Moon, but you did see Poor Things. So
Yes.
I will say, having seen both movies, I thought Lily Gladstone was going to win. It's a different
Mhm.
performance. You
Yeah,
know,
100%.
Emma Stone was transformative. Lily Gladstone was centered and just stoic, which that's a different performance, you know, and you
Mhm.
can be a good actor and give a type of
Yeah.
excuse me, performance like that as well. But when I saw Emma Stone win, I said, you know what? They went with the transformation, and that's the
Yeah.
reason why she won. So if you could touch on that, please.
Yeah, because I did see Poor Things, and I remember the same as you, that there was a lot of buzz around Lily, and I thought as well that they were gonna recognize, um, her being indigenous, and not only that, but the subject matter of the film in correlation to her performance, that she was, potentially gonna be tapping into emotions and vulnerable emotions and real emotions of things that did happen, and I thought that they were gonna take that into account, and maybe they did to a degree. And watching Emma's name get called and her reaction was so pure because you can tell she was really shocked. And it's always a humbling experience for some and for many. And to see her react the way that she did, it just kind of makes it makes her really like really lovable because you like you can see it. She's like, oh my God, I had no idea. But watching a performance in Poor Things, it's what like I understand that there were people that had a very negative reaction to it. We saw it online. There was many people that had a very negative reaction to it, and yet other people that had a neutral reaction, like okay, like I get it. And I it's so unfortunate. I've only seen trailers for Lily's performance, so I have to make time and really sit down and watch it. I'll do my absolute best. Maybe I can watch it tomorrow. But I digress. But you can tell, as you mentioned, that the performances are very different. And Emma's was transformative. It's a little bit more out, where you said Lily's is very centered, and as you mentioned, there that's just as strong as a performance. Sometimes less is more. Acting is reacting. Sometimes less is more, and being centered can work really well. But it seems that, like you said, they went with the transformative, and it's no secret that the Oscars really enjoy when a performer can just push it, because Emma pushed it in this movie. Um, in a way that I've never seen Emma like this in a previous film before. You know what I mean? Like she
Right.
absolutely pushed it. She pushed the boundaries. They got uncomfortable. They did things that made you go, "Oh wow, Emma Stone is doing this in this. She's taking this role. She's taking this character." So I'm sure that all played a role. But it's no slouch to anybody who got nominated. But yeah, I can see why. Because Emma absolutely crushed it.
Yeah, and I was actually rooting for Lily Gladstone, you know,
Mhm.
because she was a first time nominee. Um I just thought she did such a good job. I saw the movie. That movie
Mhm.
doesn't do as well without her. Um Maybe just once again a chance to recognize an indigenous woman, but
Yeah.
you know, I can't be mad at the fact that Emma Stone won because
Mhm.
she was so good in that movie. You
Yeah.
know,
It's
I have personal feelings about that movie, but I'm
oh
not
yeah.
gonna let my feelings about that movie get in the way of saying, "No, this woman's performance was amazing." It was once
Exactly.
again, you know, well, I can't say performance of a lifetime because she was pretty good in La La Land, but
Oh,
she was,
yes.
you know, but she was awesome in that movie. So, all right. So next up here is Best Actor. All right. So we have Jeffrey Wright in American Fiction,
Mhm.
Paul Giamatti in The Holdovers, Coleman Domingo in Rustin, Bradley Cooper in Maestro, and then Cillian Murphy in Oppenheimer. And Cillian Murphy won. It was his first nomination and his
Yes.
first win. There was talk about Paul Giamatti winning for The
Mhm.
Holdovers and
Yeah.
his first nomination as well. Um, I don't believe there was too much buzz about anybody else. But before we
Mhm.
get to the winner, Murphy, I did want to touch on something that I saw here. Uh, Apparently, Bradley Cooper has 5 Oscar nominations for acting.
Wow,
So,
I didn't even realize.
yeah, one, two, three, four, five. Yes. So he got
Okay.
nominated for Silver Linings Playbook,
Oh, you're right. That one slipped my mind. Okay.
American Hustle,
Oh.
American Sniper,
Oh,
A
yeah.
Star
Yeah.
is Born,
Yep.
and Maestro.
Wow.
He's Bradley Cooper's been nominated for 5 acting Oscar
It's crazy
nominations.
that for whatever reason, it didn't stick in my brain. Like, it didn't stick, and I'm like, "Oh my god, he did get nominated for those roles."
Yeah. Yeah, and, he directed Maestro,
Mhm.
just as he directed, A Star Is Born,
Star is
so,
Born.
he's, in front of the camera, behind the camera, but, yeah, 5 nominations. You didn't see Maestro yet, did you?
Not yet, no.
He was pretty good.
Yeah, and
He
that's what
was
I
pretty
hear, that's
good.
what I hear. I hear he's really good in it, and I was like, "Okay, okay."
Yeah, some people felt that it was a little over the top and to a fault,
Mhm.
but hey, man, we both have an acting background, and to me, when you have energy on screen, if it comes
Yep.
off as too much, there's a fine line between too much and just enough.
Yes.
And a lot of people felt it was too much. Nah, I felt it was just enough. I said,
I
you
was
know
like,
what?
"Yeah."
He poured his heart into this performance. He at least is going to get that nomination. It was just a tough year. It was just a tough year.
It
Um,
was. It really was.
So the other winner that people thought the other potential winner was Paul Giamatti. So
Yeah, dude.
he's
Yeah.
been killing it for years as an actor, many different roles. But to this day, not one Oscar nomination. But out of all of them, people felt like, wow, maybe this might be his chance. So
Yeah.
um, I didn't see him beating Killian Murphy, but I can see why this role was nominated. So if this is your chance to talk about the holdovers a
Yeah,
little bit because you really enjoyed this movie,
I
um,
did.
and how you felt about him being nominated and him having a chance to actually win Best
Yeah.
Actor.
I there was a part of me that was very nervous for Killian because I thought usually at the Oscars, you have those surprise moments. Like again, Emma Stone winning was a surprise moment because a lot of people had just kind of assumed Lily was going to win. It was a surprise moment. Before the Oscars aired, so prior to the show, I was like, I thought Giamatti was going to be the shock win. I thought that was
Mhm.
going to be the one win of the night that people were like, oh, like it's Killian, and then all of a sudden Paul Giamatti was going to come in because Paul Giamatti's performance is it's a beautiful performance. Again,
Yeah.
there's a big difference between every one of the performance. Killian's and Paul Giamatti, in my opinion, were the two that were really fighting for that Oscar. And between the two, Paul Giamatti's performance was like a raw and a role that became more vulnerable as the story continued. And watching Paul just go to those levels and be that emotional and just having this character arc throughout the film from beginning to end, it was just like, no, I can absolutely see it. And I was it was hard, man, because I was rooting for both of them. I really was. I wanted Killian to win it because it was his first Oscar nom as well. And I thought Killian has been a terrific actor and he's been working with Nolan for years. And we were both very big on Oppenheimer. And I was like, man, RDJ just won Best Supporting. I'm rooting for Best Actor. I want let's get it all, man. Like I was really, really rooting for it. But on the back of my mind, I was like, man, the studio, they might go to Paul Giamatti. They might do it. The Oscars might do it, but they went with Killian. So again, either one of those actors could have won, and I would have been ecstatic. But I was very happy for Killian. I was very happy for Killian. I think Killian has a great career. I'm very grateful that he's getting a lot more recognition because Killian's one of those guys who's been making great films and roles, but people weren't really walking around with Killian as a household name, and I think that Oppenheimer really put him in the front. You know what I mean? It's great to see him up front. He's always had the talent, but now he's up front. Usually they think of like the television show Peaky Blinders with Killian Murphy, but
Right.
when it comes to film, people don't really necessarily think of him as the front guy. So I was so happy that Nolan made him the front guy and then he won an Oscar for that performance. It was very well deserved.
Now, sometimes the argument comes into play where, oh, this could have been anybody because
Mhm.
this movie did so well. We knew that it was gonna, it had a solid script. We knew the cinematography was gonna be there. We knew that the supporting cast was absolutely
Oh,
amazing,
dude,
stacked,
stacked.
stacked. So you were setting up the lead to do
Mhm.
really well, but we can't go down those what ifs because
Yeah,
he still did it.
yeah.
He went in there. He had a chance to be a leading man and he knocked it out of the park. His
Mhm.
first chance in an epic biopic, under Christopher Nolan. He's been with him before, and
Yeah.
Nolan could have picked a lot of people that he's worked with before.
Oh, dude,
He could have picked
easily.
so many different people, but he said, "No, I want Killian to be the lead,"
Yep.
Uh, who he had auditioned to play Batman in Batman
Yeah.
Begins,
Yeah,
you know?
it's funny, people don't know. I'm like, "Yeah, man, he auditioned for Batman." "Yeah, I didn't know that." Like, "Yep, Cillian
Yeah,
Murphy."
and then he kept him around as a scarecrow, but,
Mhm.
brought him back for Inception and so on and so forth, but he said, "No, I want him to play Oppenheimer," and he did,
I l
and it was it was great. It was great, when I saw Oppenheimer, the easy one was Robert Downey Jr.,
Yes.
and then Murphy was the one where was like, "I don't know, but he's definitely getting nominated." There was no way that he
Mhm.
wasn't gonna get nominated, so, yeah, what
Yeah.
were you gonna say?
I was gonna say, I think there's something really, really great about watching a relationship, a partnership between a director and their actors, and to see through the years Nolan work with Killian over and over again, and just kind of building that relationship and that repertoire, and that role finally came. Like it's like Nolan was waiting for that one role, and was like, "This is it. I've got the lead role for Killian." And for Killian to knock it out of the park and win an Oscar for it, that's just awesome, man. Like I love that type of stuff. I love seeing that relationship between a director and a cast and building up to that moment and then winning in the end. That's a perfect W in my opinion.
Yeah. So, speaking of Nolan, let's go to Best Director.
Yeah.
We have Jonathan Glazer for The Zone of Interest.
Mhm.
We have Yorgos Lanthimos for Poor Things. Martin Scorsese for Killers of the Flower Moon. Justin Triet for Anatomy of a Fall. And then the winner, Christopher Nolan for Oppenheimer. So
Yeah.
I saw all of these movies but Anatomy of a Fall.
Mhm.
And for me, this was Nolan's to lose because of
Yeah.
how well Oppenheimer had done critically, financially, and then of course during awards season. It
Yeah.
was just a situation of here we go. It's finally time for the Academy to give it to Christopher Nolan, who,
Yeah.
you know, they say is the best director of the 21st century. You and I talk about him being the modern goat.
Dude, he's the guy. He's the guy.
Yeah, he's, just the best filmmaker of the modern era in my opinion,
Mhm.
and it was finally time for Nolan to get that best director win and he did for Oppenheimer. Totally deserved, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I know that when we walked out of the theater, um, we always try to sleep on our feelings and see how we feel with our rankings and whatnot. But I remember walking out and be like, I think that's his magnum opus, man. Like that was
Yeah.
his, like that film. It felt like he had taken everything that he had learned from every film prior up to that point and taken all the great execution and putting it together for Oppenheimer and to make a movie feel the way that it felt. Again, we're talking about a movie that's built on the idea of dialogue and just conversation and characters talking to one another, and for him to make it feel epic in a way, and with his direction, with his cinematography choices, and what was going to be this and what was going to be that, like you couldn't help but walk away and go, okay, no, like this is it. Because there have been many times where we felt Nolan should have been nominated or even won an Oscar. He's that director, man, that we've kind of been rooting for a long time, and you're kind of like, when's it going to happen? Like when's it going to happen? When's it going to happen? When's it going to happen? And when Oppenheimer was finished, you were like, okay, if that doesn't do it, we have a problem. You know what I mean? Like it was like, no, like we've seen it with other directors. We've seen it with Scorsese. We've seen it with actors. We've seen it with Leonardo DiCaprio. We've seen it. We've seen it time and time again where someone can go a long time where you're like, man, how has it not happened yet? Like how? And for whatever reason, it took as long as it did. But Oppenheimer, when it was all said and done, it's arguably one of his best films. Easily, top film of the year for me, I believe for both of us. And it was so deserving, and he was so deserving. And I felt like this Oscar wasn't just an Oscar win for Oppenheimer, but for his career up to this point. Like, because again, I feel like he's been deserving for so long. Again, we have 10 slots for Best Picture because of his version of The Dark Knight. Like, we have that to owe to
Right.
Nolan. You know what I mean? Like, he changed a lot in cinema and with the Oscars. So I was so happy to see him get it. And it felt like a moment where like we've been watching someone for a long time just climbing up that ladder. So for him to finally get it just felt like the perfect win and the accumulation of everything he worked so hard for. So I was ecstatic that he got it.
And he's only been nominated for Best Director, one other time. You
Yeah,
know,
and,
it's usually him being snubbed for not being nominated.
yeah, and what was
So,
it
it was for Dunkirk,
Dunkirk, thank you,
you know,
Dunkirk,
and then he
yes,
won,
Dunkirk.
and we'll get to Best Picture in a second, but he's only been nominated for Best Picture 3 times, and a
Yeah, it
few of his movies a handful of his movies could have been nominated for Best Picture,
Mhm.
um, but, you know, it didn't happen, so, um, thankfully, he got nominated and won on his 2nd time, you know, being nominated for Best Director,
Oh, yeah.
and this brings us to Best Picture, so this is the top award of the night, and
Yeah.
the nominees were as follows: The Zone of Interest,
Mhm.
Poor Things, Past Lives, Maestro, Killers of the Flower Moon, The Holdovers, Barbie, Anatomy of a Fall, American Fiction, and the winner, Oppenheimer. So
Yeah.
I saw all of these
Mhm.
except for Anatomy of a Fall. You saw a decent amount of these as well.
Mhm.
And regardless, once again, this was Oppenheimer's to lose
Yeah.
because just once again, critical acclaim, financial acclaim, award season wins left and right. To me, this was always going to be Oppenheimer. And a lot of times the Academy, they'll you know, they'll put the best director and best picture together because how are you
Yeah.
gonna let the director win but not give it best
Yeah, that's
picture
it.
or best picture but not give it a best director? It's split a few times, you
Yeah,
know, but
yeah.
it's kinda like, "Hey," and then also it ended up winning the most Oscars of the night. Why wouldn't it get best picture if it won all these other ones? So,
Yep.
um what were your feelings on that as well? Just it being Oppenheimer's to lose. It was just like, hey, we saw how many wins it was getting. We saw how many wins it was getting throughout award season, and then now throughout the whole night, it's like, okay, why would it not be Oppenheimer at the end of the night?
Yeah, like, again, you feel like you had a really strong lead in, like, again, best supporting actor, best director, and others to be named, that you can't help that it's just leading in that direction, you know what I mean? And again, walking out of that movie was an experience. I adore The Holdovers and many of the other films that I had seen. Like, again, I I bought Holdovers on Blu-ray the moment it was available. I was like, that is a must own for me. Like, there was many movies that I loved over the course of the year. But it was Oppenheimer's to lose. Again, no movie made me feel the way that Oppenheimer made me feel. Equivalent in a way to the year prior where everything ever all at once, like instinctively, it was like that movie made me feel things that no other movie made me feel that year, and that was Oppenheimer. While Oppenheimer is not as an emotional film, just it felt like I was watching the coup de grace, like everything just come together. So it was Oppenheimer's to lose, without a shadow of a doubt. And I think many people knew that. I think that people walked away from Oppenheimer in that experience and the conversations that were had because of that film. And again, people recognizing Christopher Nolan as what we say is the GOAT, you know what I mean? And Nolan we trust. There was just too much going for it for me to think like I had no doubts. Like usually I'm a little nervous, you know what I mean, with Best Picture and certain other categories. But I was like, no, no, no. Like Oppenheimer's got this. Like, there's no way it's not Oppenheimer. We're talking about critical reception. We're talking about audience reception. We're talking about financial success. We're talking about just award recognition. Like, there was so much going for it. And, again, with Christopher Nolan winning Best Director, it's kind of hard to split that category up and say, well, we'll give Best Director, but not Best Film and all these other awards as well. But yeah, like, yeah, I had no doubts. This was one of the few times where I had no doubts that it was going to be Oppenheimer. Again, one of the greatest films, man. Like,
Right.
I feel like this is one of those movies that you watch, you start adjusting your greatest films list. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like it's that type of movie.
And Nolan was nominated for Best Picture for Inception,
Mhm.
Dunkirk, and Oppenheimer. So only 3 times he was nominated for Best Picture, but you and I personally feel he could have been nominated a few more
For
times for that.
sure.
The Dark Knight,
Absolutely.
The Dark Knight
Yes.
for sure.
Dark Knight easily, easily.
Inception,
Yeah.
you know? So, um, we're gonna I think we should do an episode where we go over Christopher Nolan's filmography, and we
Oh,
talk
be awesome.
we talk about his movies, and, hey, maybe we might rank them, who knows, you know? So
That's gonna be hard because
yeah,
it's like, "Oh, man, guess what? You're breaking up the Dark Knight trilogy now."
yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
"Oh, no.
Yeah,
Okay.
but, we've done a breakdown for every single Christopher Nolan movie, but now let's stack up that filmography, and we could
Oh,
just
man.
talk about all the awards, the wins, and maybe even rank it and see
Mhm.
because, you and I feel he could have been nominated for Best Director way more times and then Best Picture way more times.
Bro,
So,
I'd have hooked him up for The Prestige. I'd have been like, "Come on, man." Like, that movie I love that movie,
yeah,
like
and then what we can do when we do that is, we can touch on it as well. Um Almost every Nolan movie has been nominated for at least one Oscar.
Oh, yeah.
Only a few of them have not, and it's
Mhm.
so interesting whether or not he was nominated, the movie
Yeah.
itself was nominated for an Oscar, so I think that would be a really cool thing for us to take a look at with Christopher
Oh, yeah.
Nolan. So,
Oh, yeah.
um, the only other movie that I saw possibly winning, Best Picture was probably Poor Things because of how original it was,
Okay.
and um, once again, I have personal feelings on that movie, wasn't my cup of tea, but just with, just the buzz it was getting, how original it was,
Yeah.
and then maybe Killers of the Flower Moon because it's a Scorsese movie and,
Yeah.
but once again, it's like, no, it was Oppenheimer's to lose, and
Yeah.
obviously we were so, happy to see that. Alrighty, so that's our feelings on the winners there and some of the nominees. Let's take a look at all the movies that had the most amount of nominations and how
Mhm.
many wins they walked away with. So um, we have Zone of Interest, and that had 5 nominations. It
Okay.
was Best Sound, Best International Feature, Adapted Screenplay, Best Director, and Best Picture. It won Best Sound, and it won Best International Feature.
Okay.
So that was the Zone of Interest. That's one that you need to check out still.
Yeah.
I saw it. It's so little warning. It's a Holocaust movie.
Yeah,
So
it's gonna
not
be brutal.
yeah, it's not fun. Not fun.
Yeah.
Um, we have next up here, American Fiction, which is another one
Mhm.
you need to see still. So American Fiction was nominated for 5 Oscars as well.
Okay.
Best Original Score. It won for Best Adapted Screenplay, and then nominated Best Supporting Actor Sterling K. Brown, Best Actor Jeffrey Wright, and then Best Picture as well. So I actually enjoyed this movie.
Good.
It was like a satire.
Okay.
So, and there's a big social commentary on African American culture and what people eat up as far as books, movies, and pop culture is considered, and what is Black culture, and there was just a lot of things that they touched on that I enjoyed. So I can see why it was nominated for all
Good.
those awards, but that's as far as American Fiction goes. Next up here, it's The Holdovers, a movie you were high on. It was
Yeah.
nominated for 5 Oscars.
Cool.
Uh, Nominated for Best Editing, Best Original Screenplay. It won for Best Supporting Actress, Divine Joy.
Mhm.
Best Actor, Paul Giamatti, and then Best Picture nominated. And obviously, just the one win there, which
Yeah.
you are happy with, right?
Dude, I'm happy with it. I'm happy with it. She was great. She was great. If we woulda got a best adapted screenplay, I'd be cool with that too, but I was happy nonetheless.
So next up here, we have Barbie with 8 nominations.
Yeah.
So Best Production Design, Best Original Song, but it got two. So I'm Just Ken, and then the
Mhm.
winner, What Was I Made For? Best Costume Design, Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Supporting Actress, America Ferrera, Best Supporting Actor, Ryan Gosling, and then Best Picture.
Mhm.
So a lot of nominations, not that many
Yeah.
wins.
Yeah. It got the one I thought it was gonna get. I was like, "That's the one. Like, that's the one it's gonna get."
Yeah, and so now we've actually looked at it as far as Best Actress and Best Director. Like, I think it could have gotten nominated, right? I mean,
Oh, man, it's ooh.
Best Director, maybe. I mean, Best
I
Actress was stacked,
Yeah,
so
best actor was a stack, but and I think Barbie should have been nominated for best director because
at
again,
least Best Director,
I
right?
have a problem if you nominate a film for best picture
Right.
and you don't nominate the director. Like, that doesn't sit right with me. So, for whatever motivations they had to say this movie is good enough to be nominated for Best Picture, but we're not gonna nominate the one that's gotta essentially lead the way. Like, the one that oversees the entire
Right.
production, the cast, the writing, everything else, deciding what's gonna be this. I'm like, "You don't nominate her?" Like, that was the one that I was kinda like, "Okay," like, regardless of whether you like the film or you don't, I think that, again, it's still rather odd to nominate it for Best Picture and not nominate Greta for Best Director. I would
So
have absolutely nominated her.
so to your point, they can only do 5 nominations with the Best
Mhm.
Director, but every Best Director was nominated for Best Picture. So at least
Yeah.
they do that. At least they
Yep.
did that. But
Yep.
just with all the buzz Barbie was generating, maybe Greta could have made it in there. Maybe.
I personally would have had Greta nominated for
Yeah.
Best Director. I would have.
Yeah. I mean, see, I didn't see Anatomy of a Fall yet, so I don't know if I would leave that one out.
Mhm.
Um, Poor Things, I could see him being nominated. I
Yep.
can
I get that.
Scorsese, man, Scorsese gets
It's
nominated all the time.
it's Scorsese, man.
You
Like, I
know,
like, yup, like, I get it. I get it. It's
we know he's not gonna
Scorsese.
win, but is it just like a at this point, oh, if he has a movie, we'll do it's almost
They'll
like
put
a
him in it.
it's like Meryl Streep. It's like, of course
Yep.
she's the best actress in the room, you know?
Yep.
So,
Yep.
alrighty. So that was Barbie. Um, Next up here is Poor Things. 11 Academy Award nominations for Poor
Wow.
Things. Wow, I didn't realize that.
That's a lot.
So, best film editing, it
Mhm.
won best costume design, it
Okay.
won best makeup and hairstyling,
Okay.
best cinematography nominated, it
Mhm.
won best production design,
I get that.
nominated best original score, best adapted screenplay, nominated best supporting actor, Mark
Mhm.
Ruffalo.
Oh, he was
Um,
so good. Oh,
yeah.
he was so good.
Best
So good.
best actress, Emma Stone,
Mhm.
and she won. Best director, and then, best picture. So,
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4 wins out of
It's
11
not
11 nominations.
11 is a lot of nominations. Like, I'm like, "That's a lot." They did really well when it comes to nominations.
Yeah, so, um, man. So, let's just take a minute to talk about this. So, would it be safe to say you have I don't wanna say mixed feelings about the movie, but you have personal feelings about the movie as well, you know?
It is in my exact words when I saw it
Yeah,
and I
and
was
I
communicating with a friend.
right, and by the way, folks, like, we're not gonna keep you we're not gonna, leave you hanging here. More than likely, we're not gonna do a breakdown for this movie, more than
I
likely.
don't know how I would talk about this movie. It
Yeah,
is
yeah,
I don't dislike it. It's just it's an interesting movie. That was my way of
right,
putting it. Like, it's not a movie. Like, I love watching a movie and being able to recommend it to almost everyone. This is not a movie I'd be able to recommend to everyone. You know
right,
what I mean? Like I'd be like, like perfect example. Like, this is not a movie I would recommend to my wife. I'd be like, you know
right.
what? You don't have to see
It's
that.
not for
You know,
everyone.
it's not for everyone. That's the thing. It's not for everyone. I remember reading uh, online criticisms, and again, there was a very negative reaction from some people. There was neutral reactions. There was positive based off the performances, which is where we kind of rely. The performances is what is really drawing us to this film. But it's a very interesting movie with some of these creative choices that are made. I understand the themes and the story that they're telling, but it's interesting. It's interesting. Again, it's not a film for everyone. I'll say
Right.
that.
Um, Once again, not a surprise because just a lot of, critical acclaim, a lot of, awards buzz, with
Mhm.
all these, different shows, and, 11 nominations. Wow, I hadn't realized
It's a
that.
lot, dude. That's a
A
lot.
lot of nominations. You and I, we, um, we enjoy original films, and I will give
Yes.
it its due as far as being an original film.
Oh,
It's an
yep.
original film, very unique, and I
Yes.
cannot take that away from this movie, even though it wasn't for me.
Mhm.
But, and all these people and all these nominations, I could see why these technical nominations. I could see why Mark Ruffalo got nominated. I could see
Oh,
why
yeah,
Emma
dude.
Stone got nominated and won. I can see why Yorgos got nominated for Best Director and why it got
Mhm.
nominated for Best Picture. It just wasn't for me.
Mhm.
and just it was such it's an uncomfortable movie and so on and so forth. The social commentary, I will say that
Yeah.
I enjoyed the social commentary
Yes.
aspect, but
Yes.
once again, that's so there we go, folks. That's our thoughts on
That's
on
that's what you getting from Poor Things. That's what you gonna get out of
yeah,
us.
yeah, but yeah, 4 wins out of 11 nominations.
Yeah, they did good.
This next one here is a bit of a heartbreaker. It's Killers of the Flower Moon. So let's take a look
Oh,
here.
yeah.
10 nominations for Killers of the Flower Moon.
It's a decent amount.
Yes. Best original song, best original score, best costume design, best production design, best film editing, best cinematography, best supporting actor, Robert De Niro, best supporting excuse me, best actress, Lily
Mhm.
Gladstone, best director, Martin Scorsese, and then best director. Excuse me, best picture,
Yeah.
0 wins. Not
0,
1
dude.
win.
That's the bummer. Like, you hate to
Yeah.
see that happen because I mean, look, it's it's an honor just to be nominated is that's the feeling is like just to be nominated is amazing, and it is. But man, not a single one. It's like, oh man, that's sad. That kind of stings a little bit.
Yeah. So it was nominated for a few Golden Globes, and
Mhm.
the only one that won was Lily Gladstone.
Lily. Yep.
Yeah. And Leo got nominated for Best Actor for that too.
Oh, okay.
Leo and Robert De Niro, Best Supporting
Robert,
Actor.
yeah.
So it got nominated for 7 Golden Globes, but it
Okay.
won. Lily Gladstone won it. Um, I mean, and once again, it's just kind of like, hey, it's Scorsese.
Yeah. Exactly.
He's an acclaimed director and so on and so forth. But you haven't seen it yet. I did. It was
Mhm.
epic. I
Good.
think it was like 4 hours long. It was
Yeah, it's
3 to
it's a
4
it's a
hours.
long movie. That's
Yeah.
been one of the things, like, I wanted to watch it, and I'm just trying to find time to watch it, and I'm like, "Oh, man, it's one of those long movies. I gotta find time to watch it." So I have to desperately find time to see this thing.
Yeah, 3 hours and 26 minutes. So
Yeah.
it's epic. And lastly, here we have Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
So let's count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 nominations.
Wow.
Yeah, 13. And they won 8. It won 8.
Bro, 8 out of 13?
Yeah. So
Very
best
good.
nominated for best sound, nominated for best production design. It
Mhm.
won for best original score. Nominated for best hair excuse me, nominated for best makeup and hairstyling,
Yeah.
won for best film editing, nominated for best costume design, it won for best cinematography,
Yes.
nominated for best adapted screenplay, nominated best supporting actress, Emily Blunt. And by the way, Christopher Nolan, of course, wrote the adapted
Y
screenplay.
Yep.
Um,
You know it.
yeah, and then the rest were all wins. Best supporting actor, Robert Downey Jr., best actor, Cillian Murphy, best director, Christopher Nolan, and best picture. Um, hold up, did I count wrong? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 wins. I'm sorry.
Still good.
Yeah,
Still good.
yeah, yeah. 13 nominations. Yeah, 7 out of 13. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. So, um, we reviewed a lot of movies tonight.
Mhm.
And not reviewed, but, we went through a lot of movies tonight as far as the Oscars go.
Yeah.
Just, let's just give some closing thoughts here, and, I mean, we talked about Oppenheimer. There was no doubt in our minds that it was going to,
Yeah.
get a lot of wins. I mean, the Nolan fan in me wanted it to sweep.
Yo, just take all of it,
13
man.
out of 13 or 10 out
Yeah.
of or high,
Go big,
10 or
bro.
10 out of 13, but it was the big word of the night, obviously, and
Yeah.
we agree with a lot of the ones, that it won for. I would have liked for the screenplay, you know,
Oh, that
I
would yeah, yeah.
I would have liked for the screenplay too, but that's okay. So,
That's another one for Nolan is, "Hey, man, you got best director and screenplay?"
yeah, yeah, just him just walking up on the stage over and over again the whole
Yep.
night,
Yep.
so,
Yep.
but that's as far as that goes, but there's no doubt that we loved Oppenheimer. We agreed
Mhm.
with, a lot of the wins that it got. Um, we did get to touch on, a lot of the people that we saw nominated and that people that we wanted to be nominated and such. But
Mhm.
for the most part, we were okay with a lot of the winners. So
Yeah.
just some of your closing thoughts on the 2024 Oscars, Ricardo.
Yeah, there was a lot less, there was a lot less. I don't wanna say disappointment because 'cause I'm never really disappointed, but sometimes I'm a little sad, like, I'm like, "Oh, I was really rooting for this." This year felt like a really good year because, again, Oppenheimer did so well. Again, it boils down to that experience that we had watching it at the theater of being like, "Man, this is the movie, like, this is the movie." Um, and I was happy to have just even certain movies be nominated. Again, when I saw The Holdovers, I wasn't necessarily sure it was going to be an Oscar nominated film.
Yeah.
I saw it as just a great film. So when I saw it got nominated for Best Picture and Paul Giamatti and Best Supporting Actress or best and it was just it was one of those things where I was like, "Oh wow, like it's getting a lot more love than I had anticipated." So I was very happy. So again, whether it won or lost, I was just so happy that it was getting the attention and that, like you and myself and many other people, sometimes when the Oscars get announced, they go, "Oh, what's that movie? I want to look into that." So I was grateful because I was like, there's probably some people who hadn't seen the holdovers, who probably weren't even sure about the holdovers. And so I was nominated and go, "Oh, let me go watch that." So if it was able to bring more eyes to the movie, I was very, very happy about that. But again, it was Oppenheimer's to lose, man. Oppenheimer did very, very, very well. And I'm it it felt like all those years that he had worked so hard to get that, he finally got it. So like we don't know him personally, but it just felt like someone you've been rooting for a very, very, very long time. And to see him finally get it. And Nolan's always been somewhat of an extremely humble individual whenever he talks about his films and his inspirations and what he gets from his cast and crew. Like he always just comes off like a very humble guy. So it was just it was such a bonus on top of a excellent movie to see him win the Oscar for it. So it was a great year this year for the Oscars in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. Alrighty. Folks, that was the Panel Bros 2024 Oscars reaction. If you could please give us a like, share, and subscribe on YouTube at the Panel Bros, we'd appreciate it.
Yeah.
Also, if you could please leave some comments below on how you felt about our reactions to the Oscars nominations and winners. Also, if you could leave your thoughts as well, as far as if you agreed with the winners and nominees, we would appreciate that as well. And as always, um, those like, share, and subscribes, they help our reach, and our reach allows us to, um, just get the channel out there to more people.
Yeah.
All righty. For Ricardo Segura, this is Anderson Marchak saying thank you for coming to the panel.